One of the most popular mice ever made is the SteelSeries Sensei. Unfortunately, it had a laser sensor, which had a range of issues, but now they've remade the Sensei with an optical sensor. I'll get to the testing soon. First I want to look at the shape. It's an ambidextrous design with buttons on both sides, and unfortunately I did accidentally click those on the right. Not too often though, so disabling them was just fine. I don't have the original Sensei anymore, but you can see here next to a mouse with a similar shell, they've made some changes. It actually feels like it's in between the Revel and the DM1, because it's Sensei's size, but without that bulge toward the back. Here you see it on the DM1. Also, it no longer has a rubberized coat, just plastic on top, which picks up on finger marks. It has textured rubber side grips, which actually feel quite good. The sides have a subtle curve horizontally, and even more subtle vertically, but they're both comfortable and good for grip. The back is angled, but I barely noticed that. And still no comfort grooves in the buttons, but there is a raised section in the middle, so that should prevent some slippage. They feel fine. What I don't really like is how wide the gap is between the buttons and the shell. It's great that the buttons are separate, but shouldn't need such a large gap in my opinion. Underneath you can see they've tapered the edges to avoid any scratching, and there are 3 mouse feet, which glide quite nicely. Overall, I think the shape is comfortable and good. Nice and safe. Plenty of room for your fingers, but it could do with those few features I suggested. The button slope is gradual, and the hump is more toward the back. That means it could actually be used in all grip styles. Here it is next to the FK2, Rival 310, and G703, so you know the general size of it. I'd call it medium large to large, a bit too big for my hand. For measurements, the grip width is about 6.1 centimeters, and that's going to influence your ability to aim this mouse the most. The length is about 12.4 centimeters, which is more relevant to how you grip the mouse, and the height is about 3.8 centimeters, which is also related to how you grip the mouse. For palm grip, I'd say it's ideal for 18 by 10 centimeter hands, 19.5 by 10 for claw grip, but the lower height means you won't have as much to rest your palm on, and because it is a larger sort of mouse, I'd say 20 by 10 for fingertip grip. For the best aim, you basically want a mouse at 60% of your hand measurements. The weight distribution feels like it's almost in line with the sensor, which is more toward the back, so it's not the best balance or position, but it seemed okay in game, and it weighs about 96 grams, which is a decent weight for a mouse this size, but I think it's a bit heavier than the original, so lighter may have been better. Moving on to the buttons, here is a listen to the clicks. Left and right feel like they have a good amount of tension to avoid accidental clicks, although they do feel a bit loose before you actually click them in. There's a satisfying snap, but they remain fairly light to click. Middle click is a bit harder to press in, but that's okay. The scroll steps are a bit weak, which is actually good for browsing, but maybe not so much for gaming. Overall it feels a bit loose too. The side buttons have a low travel, and a fairly average click. They're quite good, just nothing special, and the CPI button is out of the way. In the latency testing, they seem as fast as any others and score well against the G703. There's almost no difference in the results, which is extremely good, so I think the button should be good in all game types. Now, the new optical sensor is called the TrueMove 3. I have heard what the sensor is, but I'm not that interested in the names. I'm more interested in the performance and the implementation in game. So with rocket jumping, no problem, it handles it well. And moving it as fast as I can't make it spin out. Even when tilting it on its side and slamming it down, there are still no spin outs. Zooming in for the sniper test, it tracks pixel by pixel, and it moves as smoothly as expected at 1600 and 400 CPI. There's no acceleration that I can find. The liftoff distance is about 1 DVD on hard and cloth pad, and I'm not 100% on this, but it doesn't seem like there's a delay, although the Sensei doesn't feel right at times. That could be the mouse feed too though. Overall, in game it was fine, not an issue, just something I want to mention for now. In testing the 360, it's about the same as the G703. In the line test, there's no unusual jitter, angle snapping or skipping, liftoff movement is great, and there's no lens rattle. For the build quality, everything seems good, except there is a rattle on the wheel. Hopefully that's just my copy, but I get the feeling it's just a bit poor quality wise. Not a deal breaker, but something they could look at in the future. The cable seems really good. It's about 2 meters long, flexible and smooth, even if a tiny bit grippy, and it barely pushes the mouse back. In the software you can alter the buttons to the usual keyboard commands, media, launch programs and more, and the macro editor picks up on mouse and keyboard, but not the mouse wheel. The lowest CPI is 100, and it goes up in steps of 100 too, all the way up to 12,000. You can set 2, and 1 profile can be stored on the mouse. Then we have the usual options of acceleration, angle snapping, and polling rate. Lastly, it's an RGB mouse, and it has 2 lighting zones, which can be synced up. You can create your own gradients, which are nice and smooth, or you can set it static, breathing, or just turn them off. Now some Quake highlights while I give my conclusion. The Sensei no doubt lost some sales with mice using the same shape, and while I enjoyed the others, especially because they didn't have the side buttons on the right, I really want to encourage companies to be original, so we don't end up with a bunch of cloned mice in the top mice list. So while I prefer the others in some ways, I want to give SteelSeries a nod for originality. You might say, shouldn't you put the top mouse at the top? Of course, but it's one of those situations where I prefer different things on each. I think the Sensei 310 has the edge, and because it's original, that sealed my decision. This is one of the best mice on the market, and it's so great to see SteelSeries returning to form like this. They pretty much have everything right, so I can highly recommend this if it suits your needs. I'd only change a few things if I had designed it. It's a bit big for me of course, but I still aimed quite well with it, and I enjoyed using it. They sent me this as a review sample, but I just want to say thanks to them for listening to the community. I love being able to recommend products and know people are going to like them, and this is one of those. Sensor, shape, weight, balance, buttons, all really good for my testing and use. It's a great mouse for FPS and MOBAs, and it gets the award for mice that place in the top 10. Definitely check it out. That said, it's not going to be for everyone, and the new design may turn some people away. I personally quite like it though, and if you want to help support the channel, I'll leave the usual links in the description. Subscribe for more reviews and gaming videos, like and share this one, and I'll catch you in the next.